Hey everyone, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks, and today I'm playing in the Tier 9 Swedish tank destroyer. It is the Stridsvagn 1030. This vehicle is kind of like the Diet Coke version of the Tier 10 Swedish tank destroyer. You don't really want to play it after you've managed to unlock the Tier 10, as the Tier 10 has all of the whistles and bells. Especially with the armor model, this one kind of looks a little bit plain compared to the Tier 10. So what are the big differences between the two tanks, just to set the scene of what we're going to be trying to achieve today in this vehicle? Well, obviously, you lose a lot of damage per minute. You also lose quite a lot of mobility inside the siege mode of this vehicle, and a lot of accuracy as well. The base accuracy inside the siege mode of the Tier 9 is 0.3 compared to the Tier 10, which is 0.25, which is actually the joint best sniper in World of Tanks, along with the UDES at Tier 8. But this Stridsvagn 1030 still has a good amount of armor. It has 40mm of armor on the lower plate and the upper plate, which means that it will be able to ricochet all 120mm caliber guns and lower. But as soon as the enemy has a 121mm caliber gun and they're firing armor piercing or APCR rounds, they're always going to overmatch your tank. So you really got to watch out for that. And of course, as heat manages to penetrate up to 85 degrees of angled armor, yeah, if they've got heat rounds as well, it's not going to work out, irrelevant of the caliber of the gun. So now that you know about the Tier 9 Swedish tank destroyer, it's not really going to be the focus of the video today. What I really want to focus the video on today is when is the right time to fall back in World of Tanks. I want to talk about it, especially considering how I've taken a really poor position at the start of this battle, and you're going to see me just try to play a bit of a support role here in my Swedish tank destroyers. It's one of my most hated things that I see players do in World of Tanks, is when they either don't fall back from a position that they could fall back from and still survive to be able to be more impactful later on in the battle, or alternatively, when I see players fall back too early, giving up very important locations for little losses on the enemy team. And so I just want to run down a checklist that I've written out here on Word, so I can try and talk through all of the different things that go through my head when I'm deciding whether I'm going to fall back. So firstly, you need to ask yourself, how likely am I to be able to hold this position irrelevant of the rest of my team? If you've got a strong position, you want to try and hold it, right? Obviously, if you're going to be able to hold it by yourself, then there's no need to fall back. So that's the first thing you've got to ask yourself. Next, you've got to ask yourself whether there are likely reinforcements from your team that will change the chances of you being able to hold that position. Now, I know that's a bit of a joke in World of Tanks. Ha ha ha, your team coming to reinforce a position that's being lost? Ha ha ha. What kind of game are you playing, QuickyBaby? Yeah, I know. I've been in those kind of situations all too much, which is why I usually like to try and depend on myself. But you've definitely still got to ask yourself that. And we're kind of going into a position where all of these questions will be asked very soon. Do you see these 3 Tier 10 heavy tanks approaching from the west? Yeah, we've got to try and manage to at least make them lose a few hit points while we hold this position. And I'm hoping that we can manage to get a couple shots into the Tier 10s. But as there are Tier 10s now advancing towards the T95 as well, this is looking a little bit ugly here. Alright, the next thing you want to ask yourself is, can we lose this position and still come back into the battle? The amount of times that I see people try and run away from a position which was really the only chance that they would have to be able to win the game, and then just give it up for free, and then think, oh well, if I just go and fall back, I can keep falling back until the edge of the map, and then, oh, it doesn't matter that we're going to be flanked and pincered and they're going to have a huge crossfire on us. It's really frustrating when I see that. You've really got to ask yourself, can we afford to lose this position and still come back into the battle later? The next thing that you have to consider is, how much damage will the enemy take if they're forced to take the position from you? And that's because, again, this is back to the one of my most hated things in World of Tanks, is when I see players giving up important locations. What some players will do is they'll think, oh, I better run away because, oh, I don't want to lose any hit points, and that's the mentality that some people have, and some people can't accept death in World of Tanks. Unfortunately, death is inevitable. It's coming for all of us. Thankfully, in World of Tanks is a little bit quicker. Well, hopefully you can try and delay it as long as you can, but you shouldn't delay it in World of Tanks to a point where you're no longer going to be able to be impactful in the game. More importantly, that you're going to actually win the battle altogether. So I decided that I could fall back from that position against those Tier 10 heavy tanks and still be influential here, because I think that if we can manage to take the hill, maybe it'll give our team a bit of a respite. And also, while they're closing down on our position and things are starting to look really ugly for our team, with plays like this against the UDES 16 on the enemy team, well, anything is possible, right? And I think if I just sat there, all of those tier 10 heavies would have overmatched my armor. I would have just been absolutely annihilated, and I wouldn't have been able to achieve anything at all. And importantly as well, if I decided to hold that location, none of my team would have really been able to assist me. They were still taking the hill. They hadn't claimed the hill. They didn't have any opportunities to shoot from the hill, and so by holding that position, it would have been useless. But back to my point, and that is one of my most hated things is seeing players give up positions all too easily. Quite often, if you actually go and hold a position, you can make the enemy take substantial amounts of damage from taking it from you. And this is also important for my next point, which is, am I fast enough to escape? Well, and again, this is probably my most hated thing that I see players do. When they kind of think, oh, I'm going to run away from this position, but they're doing it in quite a slow tank, and then they just give up an important location where they could have been hull down, or they could have maybe been above their opponents, and they could have forced them to lose a lot of hit points from taking that position from them. So they give up that position, then the enemies come and take it, and then they manage to shoot you as you're running away in your slow, heavy tank. Well, hopefully not not hopefully all of you out there, because you wouldn't be doing that, right? You'll go through this list, you'll think through, am I able to achieve all of these things? And hopefully answer yes, 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 or no, and then be able to make your best decision from that. That's really what I wanted to try and purvey in this video. You'll see that I'm giving the run around here with the Object 277. This tier 10 Soviet heavy tank has been chasing me for the last several minutes. And it's absolutely fantastic that we've been able to kite him through the center of the map while also taking out a Jagdtiger, while also taking out a Conway. And now we're able to go and hopefully change the engagement in the favor of my T-57 Heavy. Although I was really thinking my T-57 Heavy was going to struggle there, but he didn't. He absolutely shut that tier 10 Italian auto-reloading medium tank down. And this Object 277, who just came after me, thought I'd be a big tasty snack, has just achieved so little. So it's showing you how important it is to be able to kite your opponents and also to be able to fall back to then have more of an advantage against them later on. If I'd held the line against that 260 TPs in the 277, I would have inevitably died by falling back, giving the run around this 277, and literally just locking down my opponents here. We're absolutely nailing it. Now in this position, I could fall back behind the bush, but I don't need to because there's a tree in the way of the 277. So I'm going to go forwards into the bush, should be able to shoot through his hull armor here. I actually end up tracking him, but that's not hopefully a bad result because I'm hoping my T-57 Heavy is going to hit him. Luckily for me, the 277 tries to blind fire, but doesn't go anywhere near me. My T-57 Heavy leaves, which kind of alarms me a little bit, but I should be okay to put one more round into the 277 with the 308mm of this penetration on this gun. And the final round into the front of his hull. Great stuff. Absolutely annihilated that 277. That is what this tank is fantastic for. What better to talk about when to fall back in situations when you're playing probably one of the best falling back tanks in the game, right? I.e. one that can go 50 kilometers an hour forwards, but 45 kilometers an hour backwards. And when you combine that with the 2,700 damage per minute that this vehicle has, oh yeah, Stridsvagn 1030, this is my kind of tank. But again, back to one of the first things that I said in this video, and that is, it really is the Diet Coke version of the tier 10, and you probably don't want to play it. If you have the tier 10 unlocked, that is. Alright, so I'm asking this T-57 Heavy to fall back. He actually shoots the 60 TP once, and he shoots him a second time before he manages to get me. The reason why I wanted to fall back there is I wanted to try and get hull down. With the T-57 Heavy, there's no point in sitting here. If we'd managed to sit here, all that would have happened is the 60 TP could have come around the corner and grinded us. By falling back and getting over this little lip, we'll have a much better opportunity to get shots into his lower plate, and thankfully, the T-57 Heavy listened to me, and now I'm going to take the shot for my autoloader to allow him to reload. You'll see in the chat as well that I say, reload, I tank for you. And that's exactly what I'm trying to do here. I'm tanking for the T-57 Heavy, who actually bounces off the 60 TP twice, so... yeah, looks like I actually had to do it myself. I was a little bit nervous there that the T-57 Heavy wasn't going to do his part of the deal. Mate, well, I had the hit points, and I had the armor, and I wanted to block those shots for you. I really needed you to finish him off as well. Nevertheless, just a quintessential game for the Stridsvagn 1030. This is the perfect round in almost every way for this tank. You get into a position, it doesn't work out for you. You go in advance to try and see if you can now hold the line, but unfortunately you got there a little bit too late and the enemies were going to just overwash the position. We figured out, is it time to fall back? The answer was yes. And afterwards, we managed to be very successful from it, and we used the mobility of this vehicle as well as the firepower to keep drawing the battle lines and forcing our opponents to come at us. And that's exactly what you need to do in this tank especially, but it's also a playstyle that you can replicate in pretty much all vehicles in World of Tanks that have a reasonable amount of mobility too. So once again, just to summarize for all of you who really want to delve into this concept and are maybe struggling with it, when to fall back in World of Tanks. So firstly, you need to ask yourself, how likely am I to be able to hold this position irrelevant of other teammates? Obviously, if you can hold a position, why are you even asking it in the first place? There's a reason why you take strong positions on the maps of World of Tanks. That's because you can be more influential. And the longer that you can hold a strong position, the more likely it is that your team is going to be able to gain an advantage with vision or just whittling down your opponents and to increase your chances of winning the battle. If you're not able to hold this position by yourself, next look at the map and try and judge whether there are chances of any reinforcements that will change this. If that's not the case, then you have to make another estimate, and that is how much damage will the enemy take if they claim this position from you? Because quite often, the most important positions will be able to create a crossfire. Maybe the IS-7 is going to have to try and get your side armor and your tank destroyed, and he's going to have to expose all of his rear and side armor to all of your allies that may be 100 or 300 or even 400 meters away. Also, quite a few of the most important locations are usually on a ridge or they're on a hill, and you can manage to get hulled down or just use the high ground at your opponent as they're advancing towards you. If that's the case, don't abandon the position. Maybe you can manage to do 1,000 damage, a couple thousand damage with your allies, maybe 1,000 spotting. With the crossfire you can try and create. Don't leave the position unnecessarily if you think that you're going to be able to make a big impact that could change the sway of the battle. If the answer is still no, maybe they're going to be able to overmatch you like they would have done against me in my Stridsvagn 1030 earlier. Ask yourself, are you fast enough to escape? Unfortunately, if the answer is no, then you should hold the position anyway. Because one of the worst things that I see players do is to fall back from a position when they have no chance of actually escaping it, and then they just give up the weaker parts of their armor to their opponents. And importantly, you don't force them to take damage because you're giving up the position rather than making them take it from you. And the final question to ask is, can you afford to lose this position and still come back into the battle? Unfortunately, you can't keep falling back. You can't keep falling back until you're at the edge of the map, because map control is key in pretty much all video games, and World of Tanks is no exception. If you give up 80, 90% of the map, then your opponents are going to be able to just dominate you with vision. They're going to be able to get better angles of fire. They're going to be able to use different avenues to advance their positions to be able to dig you out of your defensive locations, or just be able to lock down your map and then force you to have to come out to advance at them. But of course, if you've asked yourself all of these questions and you've judged the answers as to deeming that it's time to retreat, then yeah, you gotta fly, you muppet. So the result was an ace tanker for the Stridsvagn 1030 for 5,500 damage dealt, the top on our team, and 1,618 base experience points. That's gigantic for a tier 9 tank, and we didn't fire many premium rounds here, and so we make a decent profit with or without a premium account. And a big shout out to Pitoak, as it was a pleasure to play with you, and I felt like we had some synergy there towards the latter part of this round. Anyway, ladies and gents, boys and girls, that's it for today. I hope this video was useful for you. If it was, give it a thumbs up, but if you hated it, give it a thumbs down. And if you're watching this video as it's released on Sunday, it's time for another World of Tanks Tech Tree Showcase on twitch.tv/QuickyBaby. And this week, I'm really excited. I've unlocked the ST2. It's going to be my first ever ST2 Tech Tree Showcase. And so come along right now as I start at Tier 1 and work my way up towards Tier 10 so I can let you know whether I think the brand new double-barreled Tech Tree is worth it, and also give you all of my tips and tricks that I've managed to pick up with the double-barreled tanks, especially in the IS-22, the IS-32, and now also the ST2. And so I'm really looking forward to seeing all of you right now on twitch.tv/QuickyBaby. And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.